realized that I hadn't eaten hadn't eaten anything today. Game biologist, hello. Thanks for popping into the chat. Excited to see you today. Whew. Yeah, it's just one of those days where you're like, it's funny too, because I was going to work specifically on games. I'm like, I got to work on some games today. And then got caught up with emails, administrative stuff. I had one of those weird feelings about my travel plans for PAX. So I'm flying out to PAX Unplugged, and then I'm going to go from there to a design retreat in Maine. So I have to have like a nested flights to make that connection. And I was like, I wonder if I should check on those. So I was looking through my calendar, and on the return flights, they were overlapping. So I was getting into Philadelphia at 7:30 p.m., but leaving at 6:30 p.m. Like, okay, glad I checked on that. Yeah, so that was in addition to everything else. Logistics, flight planning, emails, reviewing a very exciting rules document for a game that's coming out soon. Sounds like a dream. Senior Bob, hello. Welcome. You'll be at PAX. That's awesome. I have some slots in the Unpub room. Yes, I don't know if y'all... I think we had talked about it at some point for the Unpub room for PAX U this year. They're doing it a little differently, where there's a payment for the tables, which I think is great. I think that they deserve to be paid for the awesome work that they do, and it also helps with table abandonment. You know, if you pay for it, then you're committed to it. I think it's an awesome idea. But if you did want to get tables, there was a time when you could go through Eventbrite, which should be linked on the Unpub page. And I know there was some drop off at that point, and potentially still some tables available, so you should check that out if you're going to be there. Okay, I'll be recovering from deer check during PAX. What's deer check? We talk about so much cool, weird stuff on here. I don't know if I want to know. Is this like a dead deer thing? Because I remember you saying that there was a thing where you look at dead deer too. Yeah, live or dead deers. Deer. Plural of deer is deer. Cool. So I'm excited for another design stream today. Last few weeks we've been talking a little bit about the designs I'm working through, and then moving on to some fresh brainstorming right at the end of the stream. It's been working out well. I like to have the balance of working on something that I have in progress. Always need more time to kind of think things through and iterate, and then also, you know, starting with something completely fresh, because that's really fun for people to just hop in and start coming up with new ideas. Oh, Senior Bob says I opted to not do any unpubbing so I could do some pitching. That's very exciting. I'm excited to see all the stuff. I don't know if I've seen your sell sheets. Definitely interested if you post those on Twitter or anywhere. Tag me in it. I'm interested. I always love checking out the sell sheets people have to pitch their games and the ways that people are pitching and framing things. Game Biologist says, hunters bring their deer to our deer check stations. We check the amount of wear on their teeth to age them and collect some additional data, and basically have a grand old time. Lots of fresh air, lots of driving to stations, lots of having to catch up when I'm back in the office. That's really cool. I know people have mixed feelings about hunting. I think I grew up in Maine. I had a lot of friends who hunted deer specifically for food for their families. So that's how they would be able to afford meat. I have friends today who hunt deer as an important part of their diet. So I think that, you know, for people, I eat meat. For people who eat meat, it's really no different than buying chickens at the grocery store. And there's also a lot of other factors wrapped up in that, like managing the deer population. So in addition to that, the fact that you're getting all sorts of really cool science data out of this is really cool. St. Rob says, I should probably work on setting up pitch sessions. I definitely need to revise my sell sheet. Yeah, pitch sessions, setting up pitch sessions is great. I often tend to wait to the last minute. I think it's never too late to set up pitch meetings. I think that's how I'll put it. A lot of people say, like, oh, if you're not doing a month and a half or a month ahead of time, you're not going to get meetings. It's totally not true. I've even gotten meetings at the show. I'm trying to think. PAX Unplugged 2 years ago was when I was first starting to show around Abandon All Artichokes. I had reached out to some publishers ahead of time by using the Cardboard Edison list, which is something that you can pay for and subscribe to, which you totally should, because it's a very awesome resource. I'll look that up in a second and post the link to that because it's an amazing resource. So that was some of the meetings that I had set up for PAX Unplugged 2 years ago, which was the first PAX Unplugged. But I met people on the floor, too. There's a couple of places that I stopped by. And yeah, some of them were like, well, we don't take pitches on the floor. We have everything booked up. But others were very happy to talk to me. And so if you can do some ahead of time and reach out to people, email people, that's cool. There's also just the thing of being there in person, being cool, being friendly, being excited about the thing that you're working on, where sometimes emails can go into the void. You know, they might miss them or not have a chance to look through, and the email gets old and they just archive or delete it because they just can't deal with it anymore. But if you're there in person, you have your sell sheet right there. It can still be a valuable way to connect people and get them to look at your prototypes. Of course, don't be pushy about it. If they say no, no means no. Or sometimes they'll say, well, we're not really sure, come back tomorrow, or send us an email or something. Whatever they say to do, you should do that. But I'm a big proponent about, and again, mostly because I do wait to the last minute for things, I'm a big proponent of not using time as a limitation for when you should be pitching. I think it's easy to say, oh, you know, it's a month before the show, 2 weeks before the show, 1 week before the show, it's too late. Like, it's easy as a designer, especially if you're just starting out, to think that it's too late and it's not worth it, but it's never too late. So, yeah. Now is just as good time as any. Alright, Cardboard Edison Compendium. I think it's called the Compendium. Yeah, here we go. I always like to share this resource because one of the most frequent questions I get asked is, how do you get in touch with publishers? And this list is one of the best resources. It's evergreen, it's maintained, so you know who's looking for stuff. So this list, and then just walking up to people at shows, this is my best advice for connecting with people. I support Cardboard Edison on Patreon with a couple bucks a month. Yeah, and that's what's great about this directory is if you support them on Patreon, you get access to it. And you can also just pay for it if you don't want to do a subscription. I like having the option. They make it super easy, which I really appreciate. Alright, so we're going to work on some games. I'm excited about this. Before that, I have some things that I want to talk about that's a little uncomfortable and a little awkward. So if you don't like uncomfortable or awkward things, you might want to go grab a snack for 5 or so minutes while we discuss some things that are happening in the industry right now. I like to focus this stream on game design, about my learnings, about publishers. I think that it's important to have a space where we can not escape from reality, but it's very important to have a focus. That being said, this is something that I've talked about before on stream, and I think it's important to discuss my feelings, my current feelings on the situation. So Friday of last week, it was brought to the attention of the board game industry that a member of our community, J.R. Honeycutt, had been abusive in the past. The board game industry rallied around the victim and very quickly came together. There was a lot of expressions of support about this situation. I think we reacted pretty well. This has come up in other industries, the comics industry, the video game industry, and there have been worse things. People have tried to shove it under the rug, they've tried to ignore it, they've let the person continue to act within the community and potentially cause more harm. This has been very difficult for me personally. I talked about how I went to a design retreat in Portland, I guess about a month ago now, and I spent a lot of time with JR, and we talked about a lot of life stuff. So to have this happen, and again, my experience, it's important to state, is nothing like the experience that the victim or people who worked with him for years have experienced. But I just want to share my thoughts and my feelings. So he was planning a design retreat in Maine. And again, this Portland retreat was incredibly meaningful for me psychologically, emotionally, professionally, and something that I want to keep doing going forward. We weren't sure about the fate of the Maine retreat, what was going to happen with that. But luckily, we were able to rally together all the attendees. JR is no longer associated with the retreats going forward. So when I talk about it, I want to make it clear exactly what's happening here. So me and a few other people, John Brieger, who was in the beginning offering up the space in Maine, are still involved. So we're moving forward. We're looking into ways to keep these retreats going in the future because I think it's been very valuable and I want to keep talking about it and keep sharing it. So just want you all to be on the same page when it comes to what we're doing with those. And if it's something that you had thought about or looked forward to in the future, you can keep doing so. Because I am invested in making sure that we have a productive and safe space for these going forward. All right, back to the game design. What are we gonna do? I've been working on a few things over the past week. It's funny, I like to be culpable. I like to be transparent and honest with the things that I'm doing and working on. We talked about some ideas last week for space botany. I think for Split the Loot a little bit. Yeah, mostly about space botany. I still hung up on this game. Yeah, I will be the first person to say, hey, just start whatever you have in your head, just put something down, make a prototype, work on it a little bit. But for some reason, I'm like, I know the right thing to do, but I'm still getting hung up on exactly how I want to make it work. Let me see if I can get my images here. So the game is based on a video game called Mendel, about taking components from plants, mashing them together, and making a mutated result out of the plant. One of the things I was doing was going into the game, playing the video game a little bit, such a fun game, and taking screenshots of the different combinations, because since that's my inspiration, I'm like, oh, well, if I see what the two plants look like combined, I can use that art for my cards, and it'll be easier to see the mechanics. Like, oh, this plus this makes this. It's obvious to see that through doing that. So I was working on the game. I think I was saying, like, oh, I haven't been physically working on this game. I made a bunch of screenshots, and then looking through them, when you're in the video game playing it, it's very clear. You see it grow up. You can kind of go back and forth between the different plants and see, oh yeah, this one is tall, skinny with one leaf, and this one's tall and skinny but has two leaves instead. So in the game, the differences between the plants are pretty subtle. And after taking a bunch of screenshots that I was planning on using for my cards, I realized these are a little too subtle to artistically represent what I'm going for. And for a board game where you don't have the connection of seeing the plant grow, navigating around in this space, the plants need to be more different. So when you see the mashup, it's more clear. Oh, this is a mashup of these two. You know, this one has big red berries. This one has a really thick stalk. This one has a very thin stalk. You know, you can see all the different factors coming together for the plant. So my thesis for making a lot of those changes, or for trying to get the images, was the fun of the game is in discovery. You see the new plant, like you flip the new plant card and go, aha. So the art of it is what really grabs you, because that's the fun part about the video game, is you combine these things and you're sitting there in anticipation waiting to see what happens. But the other thing about the video game is a lot of the fun comes from finding a weird mutation. And you kind of gotta mix together a lot of stuff to get there. So, for example, some of the cool plants I've had I got to pine needles. So most of them have, you know, really broad leaves, or maybe like a willow leaf, like a long leaf, but a really spiky pine needle leaf. I'd never seen that before. And just by happenstance, I combined so many things. I must have planted hundreds of plants on this island. I went really crazy with this game. So those aha discoveries are rare, and you can't, it's a mutation, right? You can't really see. So it's not like you're saying, oh, this plus this makes this, and that's interesting. It's like this plus this makes this. That's crazy. It takes a lot of combinations to get here, and you can kind of see the path through there. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about how the video game is different from this physical tabletop version that I'm trying to make, and what exactly it is, the fun that I'm trying to capture here. Because, you know, I gotta find that core, the thesis for what is going to be fun about this game. I've been getting caught up in like layout and how people move around, but not really focusing enough on like what is the fun aspect of this. And it's going to be different than the video game, because the video game is very much navigating around a world, combining many plans. It's always different. With cards, you have a limited number of things, of different, unless you have see-through cards and combine them, which we've talked about in the past. But for the most part, you're going to be going through the same pile of cards, especially if you play the game multiple times. Sorry, as I'm thinking and drinking my beverages here. Just totally off in another world. Like, oh, what if a plant is the thing? I do want to check back in with chat because talking a little bit more about the JR situation. Game Knowledge says creepy and weird that there's a crappy human in the tiny circle of people I've talked to. It's tough. It's tough. I think one of the things I keep coming back to is, like, a lot of people in the industry are blaming themselves. You know, I wonder, like, spending so much time talking so personally with him, not really being able to see through it. But it's almost like it's not even a mask, I think. And a lot of it, people think an abuse scenario is entirely intentional. We think of people as supervillains, I think, who have this, or a mastermind who's plotting this whole, every move is calculated, but it's really not the case. You know, we're all flawed human beings, and a lot of it comes down to, you know, there's abusers are nice people most of the time, even nicer than a lot of non-abusers a lot of the time. Nicer, putting themselves out there because it's part of the, and again, not this intentional mastermind thing, but the subconscious ways in which they connect with people and view people as, these are the people who I take advantage of, and these are the people who I hold close, who I bring into my inner circle. Yeah, Senior Bob is talking about the design retreats, knowing about the future of the company. There's a few different groups, and I think more and more people are doing it, which I think is fabulous. We've done it here with our not Seattle Tabletop game designers as a group, but an offshoot of that. Like, within the group, people establish friendships, and the people who felt comfortable with each other rented a cabin and, as friends, hung out for a couple of days, and we just happened to, most of us, be game designers. There's other people in different regions and pockets who have like a yearly thing. Some people call them cons, like a convention, but it's not like a Gen Con with 50,000 people. It's a convention with 5 or 10 or 15 or maybe 30 or 50 people, depending on the scale of it. They tend to be fairly insular, so there might be groups within your local area that are actually doing this that you might not have heard of. And this is something I've been discussing with these retreats going forward, is like, you do have to be a little selective in the way that, like, you want to know. You can't really necessarily just advertise these and shout them to the world because you want them to be safe spaces and you want people to be able to be vulnerable at these locations. So I think, doing the retreats is definitely something I'm interested in moving forward with. We're having conversations about keeping those going, and I would love to just make more ways for designers to get together and test together and work together, because it's just such an amazing environment. I would say it's even more valuable than going to a traditional convention. if you can take off the 3 or 4 days, or ideally a week, I think, is just getting into that space, and you wake up every morning, and sometimes maybe you're not ready to design or test, but you have all day. Halfway through the day, like finally you're ready to test, and it just happens in a much faster cycle than it would outside of that environment. So if you can get people together in your local area, find people, and again, this is why it's so important to make friends with people in this space, to establish lines of communication and develop those deeper relationships, because if you are going to do a treat like this, it's important that people do have very strong communication skills. It's important to have everything written down so you know the details of who's paying for what, and who's doing transportation, cooking, who's doing organization and logistics, transparency, communication, and systems in place to make sure that people are safe and taken care of. So yeah, that's definitely, even if you just get like 2 or 3 people together, 2 or 3 families, like inviting families to this thing is really great too, because some people have difficulty making it to an event, getting childcare. So it's a lot of really cool things that you can do to organize. But I'm looking into furthering that and working on that as well. Email just says, a couple of years ago, I contemplated trying to host a 24 to 48 hour jam at the conference center. It's got a classroom and a dining hall, mix of rustic and modern amenities. Yeah, I love that. An important thing, internet, is very important. But the rustic setting can be really great, especially because when I've done the things before, we went hiking, we went outside, which I don't do enough. So being able to get out into the world and get some creativity, inspiration from doing that is a really positive thing. And I think it doesn't have to be huge is an important part. People think like, oh, I need to invite everyone here to make it be a thing. But if you can do it with just your close friends, designers, people you feel really comfortable with, you don't need a ton of people to make it a thing. Senior Bob, Design Talk. What if cards with different plant attributes were stacked in a column, say covering the top third of the card below, and all cards together represent one plant? I like that as well. We've been talking about this game so much. I swear by the end of it, we're just going to have 99 ways to make a space botany plant game. I think I see what you're saying, Senior Bob. I'm going to kind of layer the cards here. So you see that they're stacked. And this is cool because it reminds me of one of those picture books where you flip over the different segments and it's like a crazy animal put together. Maybe he's got some berries up here. Like that. Yeah, I'll be sure to discuss any future retreat plans. Again, I've never been involved in it myself up until less than a week ago, where I was kind of thrust into this situation. And yes, very much so. I feel like I've gotten to know you all and connected both in person and through the stream. So I think that'll be fun to have you all at a design retreat. Yeah, so, and again, I'm doing a little bit of mental works now with what I've been working on and thinking through. I like to say that we can just churn through iterations. Like, if you ever feel like you're getting stuck, just take whatever you have in your brain, put it down on paper, just get it out there, get it out of your head. But I think especially if you have a very specific goal in mind, there can be value of thinking through the iterations if you're just not quite sure exactly what you want to achieve. So through doing that, and you could say, I did all these pictures, took these times to take these screenshots, I decided for now I'm not going to use them. You could say that that's a failure. Like, my goal was to get art for the cards, to put them down, make a new prototype, move forward. And instead, what ended up happening is screenshots, get a bunch of art, decide not to use them. So was that a waste of time? No. As part of the design process, sometimes you go in a direction and it doesn't work out. And I think an important part of iterating quickly is to realize when a path isn't quite moving you forward, and, not necessarily toss all that work out the window, but move on to something else. So where I'm at now is this idea that you do have your combinations of different plants. Place your workers on the cards, then you get the combination. And then playing around with a little bit more tending and befriending these plants, which is Bree Code on Twitter. That's a term that they like to use a lot. So it's something that I'm very interested in, this idea of building and nurturing things within the space of a game. So you'll get your plant sample by putting your workers on the two plants you're taking samples of, combine them to make the new plant, and then you'll have this shared greenhouse with beds that you can plant your cards into. And at each station, you'll have your meeple character or whatever actually having to be there to water and take care of these plants in order for them to eventually produce whatever resource it is that the combination creates. So you might have, for each section of plants, a number of spaces that cubes can go, and we'll start in the middle here. So if no one takes care of it, you'll remove one of the cubes, and if all the cubes are gone, all the plants die and go away. But if it gets filled up, then the plants are ready to be harvested. Filled up. Plants are ready to be harvested. And I like this idea of gameplay that's cooperative and competitive. I think there's a lot of people who've been exploring and looking into this space. So, but still friendly. Like you don't feel like, oh, I got to take care of these plants or no one else will, and they're just going to die. You get benefits from tending the plants, like research credits that will allow you to more easily turn the grown plants into resources to get the full value of the researched plant. I was thinking about upping the number of plants, because at first I had three base types of plants because I was combining them secondarily and tertiarily. I was making secondary and tertiary combinations, so it got a little complex with the tree. But I'm thinking of having 5 different types of base plants. They produce Oh, no, you're supposed to be silenced. They produce the following resources. Where are my bullet points? Medicinal, which was one of the original ones. Appeal, so they're just pleasant for whatever reason. Technological, materials, and sustenance. Okay, so medicinal is, for example, cures a disease, improves mental health, appeal, smells nice, looks nice, technological, used in nanocomputers, materials, this is like bamboo used in clothing. And sustenance. We eat it. And my idea is, as you combine the plants in different ways, some of them are just have little marks on them, like just generate resources. Others have a cool special effect. It's a combination of the two things. Like like one that's medicinally useful and appealing could be like, oh, this is it will help stop hiccups. And it tastes like strawberry cotton candy. Culinary, thank you. Culinary, that's perfect. And again, I'm getting caught up in some of the details of this. Like, my mind loves going into those nooks and crannies and like eking out the flavor of this, but I gotta keep coming back. Like, I gotta find the fun first. Gotta find the fun. Culinary benefits. What are the culinary benefits for this? Alright. Yes, take out Santiago, irrigated plants that can die. I like that. So I've told people about this game. I've pitched it, just the name of it, Space Botany, and people's eyes widen, their eyes light up, and they're like, I don't know what that is, but I want it. So as I'm moving forward with this game, I want to think too about when I pitch that to people, what is it that uniquely they connect to? Like, what are they seeing in their mind's eye when they think about this game? Which I should ask, actually, when people do get excited about it. If people are ever excited about your pitch and you haven't really explained the game that much, it's a great opportunity to gather some data and ask, like, what about this excites you? So some of the feedback that I've gotten from talking to people about it is They like the idea that they're tending plants on a spaceship specifically. So when I had the not quite rondelle circle, they're like, oh, it's like one of those circular spaceships that spins around for gravity. So I was thinking space botany as in extraterrestrial botany. So not necessarily in space, but just not on Earth. But people got really excited about the idea of doing botany in a spaceship greenhouse. So that's something fun to lean into. People were excited when I was using letters to represent the species. And started to think of them like, shoot, what is the term? Started to think about like DNA and the letter pairs. I don't know the term. I'm sure y'all will tell me in a second what the term for that is. But there's like the 4 letters in DNA that connect together. And people are doing Punnett squares, I believe is the term. Yeah, you're a cat. To be fair, these were very scientifically minded people. They were excited about this idea that there would be recessive and dominant genes, which I'm not sure if I want to lean into. I want the game to be easy and accessible, but it could be fun to have an extra layer there. People liked being able to flip over a plant card. They felt a little of that sense of discovery, but they wanted more ownership. So when you discover a plant, put your token on it to show that. I like the shared space. I don't necessarily want people to be taking the plants. I was thinking at some point you might be able to buy your own plant bed that holds only 1 plant instead of 3. So you have a little more control about keeping a very special one, but then only you can take care of it instead of one worker looking after 3 plants. This is my idea. You have a very special plant you want to hoard to yourself, so it's in your bunk. You just have it. You carved out a little nook and put some dirt in there, and like, oh, this is gonna be my plant. No one's gonna get benefits from my plant. But I still think it's important having this shared space where people are working together on these things. I don't know why that keeps surfacing in my brain, that multiple people get benefits from this. I think it feels like space, and it feels like research. We are working together to discover things, but there's still always a little bit of competition, trying to discover something first. trying to get your name associated with something. And I think that competition, a little bit of competition can be healthy, you know, with the extra benefit there of being the first to discover something can help to drive innovation. Technological, maybe also chemical conversion, material creation. There are already plant symbiote relationships that can filter soil chemistry to create plant compounds. Think natural biotech. Yeah. Yeah, that's my thinking with just like technology isn't necessarily the best word for it. Oh my gosh, cat. Yes, you're very helpful. My intention with that would be like cool, innovative innovative uses that are surprising and don't fall in any other category. So this is like the other category. A microchip plant that you can use to build a computer or eat for a snack. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, you're great. Don't ever change. It's like, oh, I can eat my computer. Subterranean moon cavern botany. I mean, I like that too. I think there's so many places where you could set this. That'd be cool. It just feels cooler in space. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But the idea of like having it be on a planet or a moon or space just makes it exciting. Okay. This sounds like an Aesop's Fable lesson. If you name your game Cthulhu Speed Dating and that gets folks excited, you better hope you understand why they get excited. Okay. I mean, now I want to know what Cthulhu Speed Dating is. Now that needs to be a game. I don't think there's enough speed dating games. I think there's a lot of space there. HEGC, yes! I only remember that for the movie Gattaca. Nice. Senior Bob wins all the internet points. I don't know what the internet points are, but you won them. Space community gardening. Yeah, community, very much so. You're working on doing it together. And that's cool because I also just really love community gardening as a concept. I have some very fond memories of first grade, and we had a garden, a greenhouse there where we would grow plants. And I still remember the planting sunflower seeds, and it was interesting because my family had a garden as well, so it wasn't like we were in an urban area and I didn't know anything about it, but it was still really cool for me to see like multiple people working on a single garden and making things grow. Ooh, actually I hadn't thought about that. There could be some neighboring effects for the 3 plants in one bed. Interactions between the plants. I like that. They could put a little more reasoning into why you might put some plants next to each other or not put plants next to each other. Yeah, another thing I keep coming back to is the economy of... Some idea for the individual cards would be something like... And I was thinking they could be mini cards, like the half size. Yeah, so this is a regular size card, poker size card, regular, technical term. So the mini card would be exactly half of this. It's Chris was telling me the other day. I'm like, oh, that's like a quarter this size, because I can't perceive how big cards are apparently. So not necessarily full poker size card, smaller footprint, have plant, and then colored shapes for the resources. It's generating 2 circles, 1 square. Each resource type has a symbol. And my idea was you would actually, these are the future resources, you'd have to nurture it to completion to be able to gather the resources. The card is flipped when the plant is mature. And then maybe each phase, those resources regenerate. The plant is an ongoing source for them. Then when you harvest the plant, you get a different benefit. Benefity. I imagine a moon cavern botany game is probably more about growing fungi, but I want to just grow fungi. I mean, mushrooms are amazing. I think it's, shoot, they all look very mushroomy. Well, no, I mean, fungi can have a lot of different looks. But, man, I don't know if I could come up with 5 different looks and then the combinations of what those would look like and still recognizable as fungi. But the art on that would be really cool. Oh my gosh, space mushrooms, yes. You can just ignore that fungi isn't part of botany. Yeah, I guess mushrooms aren't technically plants. Oddly, I imagine a moon cavern botany endeavor probably being illicit crops. It's where you hide your peyote farm. Space bats as pollinators. Giant tarot cards. So we could do little tiny baby cards or just enormous. Just a huge, big old mushrooms. Shoot. Maybe something could be mushrooms. Look, we live in a world where I just love mushrooms so much. Just love them aesthetically. Where it comes up like that. We live in a world in which mushrooms and trees interbreed. That's another benefit of having it be in space. You can just break all the rules of botany. Go space! Go future! I mean, because doing it in space kind of implies futuristic, and the future aspect is what lets us break a lot of these rules. Or, like, I like to think so. Alice in Wonderland in space, yeah. Ooh. Okay. I'd not thought about this being mushrooms. Oh man, I don't know if that would work. But now, I like this breakdown of it. It's taking the 5 different things, and there's 5 different qualities or vectors that change from item to item. Cap shape. I'm just going to draw mushrooms now, by the way, which I hope you all enjoy, because I really like mushrooms. Because you can have like a really wide shape. Like this, and then whether or not the gills are showing. If you ever look at a mushroom, or even if they have gills, a lot of this can come from mushroom identification books because they are very specific, because mushroom picking can be very dangerous. Also, don't do this at home unless you are with someone who really knows what they're doing, because mushrooms can be deadly. So that you have ones where the gills are revealed like this. I think they kind of come down. Yeah, and you have an inverted sort of a shape. You have like a big stem and like a pointy mushroom top. Coloration. Have dots on it. White mushrooms, red and yellow. Your content experts to help keep the mushroomery. I want to make this game just so I can use the term mushroomery, because that is amazing. The space mushrooms are consumed by large stoned space caterpillars, which are eaten by giant space bats. I'm going a little off the rails from what I was originally intending, but I'm not mad. Not bad. We can work with this. Semi-grounded in quasi-reality. Oregon Mycological Society. Yeah, the fact that mycological is mushrooms too is, yeah, I love that as a term. I mean, this is in Oregon too. It's so close. Oh man, look at that picture with them looking at all the mushrooms. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go. I'm listening to, oh shoot. Oh, they have an Instagram. Game biologist, why did you do this to me? I just want to look at mushrooms all day. I was at Geek Girl Con, didn't mention, this weekend. I got to judge a hour-long game design board game jam where a bunch of new designers made games from scratch. Amazingly talented people. Super excited to see everything they made. But I was walking around on the show floor for a little bit and saw this art print of different mushrooms. I'm like, I didn't know I wanted mushroom art, but now I really do. But we have a lot of art that we still haven't put up, and I'm trying to restrain myself. Maybe that's a good reason to put up more art so that I can buy mushrooms. I just want mushrooms on every wall of my apartment now. Boop. Okay. Maybe this game is going to be mushrooms. The way that they grow mushrooms commercially is also really cool. I think it involves poop. They have like large caverns with trays of manure and compost that they grow the mushrooms out of. That's funny. I was like, well, I wasn't really going to talk that much about space biology or space botany. I was just going to talk about how much I failed at making this game and how hard it is to fail sometimes. But this is cool. This is helpful. I think I'm starting to see the idea come together, and specifically what is fun about it. Because I think it's a cool idea. I don't know. It's easy for me a lot of times to be like, oh, what if it's a gourd growing game where you have a stem of gourds? A lot of the stuff we do here, right, is just things that the pitch for it just sounds so cool. Or like magical mushroom people where they're mushroom sorcerers who cast spells on one another. I find it pretty easy just to spout off things that I'm like, that sounds fun. We should do that. and make that, because it just sounds so cool. Making an actual cohesive game, finding out the gameplay, what is fun about this idea, it turns out it's hard. Like, I gotta stop pitching things to people that they get excited about, because then I gotta make it. Not stop pitching. I still think pitching is great, but keep in mind what the actual mechanics are and have a sense of what about this idea is fun and exciting for people. Alright, so in summary, what did we learn today? Place your workers, and the workers are drones. They go and collect samples in these dangerous locations. I think that's cool. Sample can only be used, can only be combined. Combine two different samples to reveal that plant card. The plant card is immature. Needs to be... Yep, your cat. Needs to be nurtured. Plant the card in a bed in the greenhouse. Work together to take care of the plants. Getting benefits for doing so. I mean, it could be a cooperative game too, but I'm not sure about that. When plants are mature, they produce resources you can collect. When plants are mature, you can choose to harvest them for an additional benefit. Collect samples from dangerous location. 5 locations to collect from. Work together to take care of the plants. They produce resources. Some of each of their parent plants. Maybe a new, a wild resource, we'll say. Now we come to the tricky part, or one of the tricky parts. You spend resources on ... I've been kind of resistant to this idea that there's cards in a marketplace that you're purchasing with these resources, or recipes that you're fulfilling orders. That people are placing. There are also additional abilities, pieces you can purchase. Yeah, that's another thing that's getting me kind of hung up, is this idea of what do you use the resources on? So, I mean, we can create a million different engines for generating. There's so many ways to just worker placement, you get stuff. I want to figure out a way to, like, what are we spending these things on, and how can we make that make sense with, you know, if a plant that's appeal and culinary. Combine those together, you get an appealing culinary plant. It produces units of culinary and appeal. Units of food, units of cuttings that can be transplanted and sold to people. Units of research to unlock cures and stuff. Yeah, and that's one of those things where for my first test version of the game, I wasn't worried too much about that. I just wanted to get the movements down, which was good because everything I did fell apart and is completely changing. But I think figuring out what exactly you do, because I think the first part of this, pen on the loose. The first part of this is really great and cohesive. It makes a lot of sense where you're smashing these things together, making the plant, taking care of the plant, growing the plant, and it provides you with stuff. All of that is a pretty satisfactory game loop. And then what exactly you do with this stuff, I want to make sure that that's cohesive as well. So you don't necessarily just, have to go into a different mind space, or I don't want it to feel disconnected to go over here and start to say like, okay, because that's very satisfying loop. Exactly. Like I have my plants over here and I'm taking care of them and they're growing up and they're doing great. And then like on this other section of the board, in the fifth zone, I think it was, from our Ludology podcast, not in the main board or in the sideboard, but in a completely separate region of the game zone. It's like, okay, and now I have to come over here and, sell this stuff to the market. Fulfill, these people want 5 technology and 10 appeal. And then I have that now to be able to purchase this thing. I want this to feel very connected to the game. Feel compelling. Like you're using units of medical research to cure a particular disease. Maybe there are a few big goals everyone is working towards that take a lot of resources, could change from game to game. I think there's something there. I think there's a way to make spending or using the resources you generate interesting. To play around with that and see what makes sense. I think there's enough there to move forward with a prototype and get some learning from that. And if it's maybe it just works having a market, it's like I need 5 blue and 5 red cubes to fulfill this thing. Now I did it and that felt great to do that. Now I have some benefits as well. Or I have some accolades from curing this disease. Oh, that's another important thing. Place your workers on the beds to tend the plants. Plant the card in a bed in the greenhouse. Put your credit token there so you get credit for discovering this plant. Maybe you can choose to do this, or you have to pay to put your token there. Play around with that as well, because this ties into game ideas we were talking about getting credit for doing research, right? Nature nerds know how to suck people in the rabbit holes. There are so many cool mushroom heads, I know, right? The mushroom growing facility close to me, and they're open to the public on Saturday afternoons. This is what? Oh my gosh. Okay, I guess I am a huge nerd. I mean, I guess I already knew that I was a huge nerd, but nothing confirms it more than just thinking right now how excited I am about visiting a mushroom growing facility. I'm gonna look up right after this show where I could find those near me, because that sounds so fun. I want to see all the mushrooms. Common mushroom saying I've heard as explained by Urban Dictionary. Treat them like a mushroom. Nice. Call the game Space Shroomers. Totally wouldn't be taking the wrong way. This is a different kind of game than I was expecting. You're making country crafts and selling them at a craft show. Instead of orders, I see what you're saying. There's a river of cards, items, components your space habitat needs to continue functioning. Okay, yeah. As long as growers can stay ahead of the flow of the needs, game goes on. Eventually the space habitat degrades and fails as unmet needs back up, and that ends the game. I mean, that's kind of... I like where you're going with that, but it's also kind of sad. There's something there, though. I see what you're saying with having it be tied more specifically into what you're doing. Like, I was seeing this as fulfilling put all the letters in the word, outside orders, but it could be internal needs, and that could make it a little more intrinsically satisfying. Ooh, I like that as a thematic win condition. I think a lot of times for win conditions, it's like, oh, you just got the most points, and the points aren't super tied to what you're doing in the game. But yeah, having a reason, like you gotta build the next habitat because you've done the best at building this habitat. I think that's really cool. Make it into a legacy game. It's that candy scene from I Love Lucy. Sure. Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're thinking of. And a failing space colony instead of a chocolate candy. And then everyone cries. And then it just ends in tears. I love how creative and funky we get with this stuff. And lighthearted and silly. And then all of a sudden it just takes a turn for like darkness and emotion and feels. You're stealing from my robot repair game. Oh no. In terms of get resources to do things. There's a lot of games that do get resources to do things. Okay. Oh, wow. This is really good. This is really good, and I'm happy. Happy that we talked about this. As I mentioned, I've been feeling a little bit stuck on it. And sometimes when I get stuck on things, my impulse is to squirrel it away and hide it and not tell anyone about it, because it's hard to admit that you're stuck on something, especially if it takes a while to work through. If you keep coming back to it, saying like, I'm still stuck on this same thing, I feel, yeah, it's hard to say that. It's the same with if you're going to playtest nights and showing the same game over and over and it's not really progressing, or people are asking, it's like, oh, have you made more changes to that game we tested? And you have to keep saying, it's like, no, I just still feel stuck on it. I think it's important to realize when we are working on things, like I mentioned with screenshots, and it's just not working, like working on something that doesn't work is still working. That's my quote of the day. I'm gonna have to tweet that. That's cool. A lot of the times we want to see progress, right? We want to see positive change. We want to see things moving in the right direction. But all this stuff builds up into our brain and our mental model and our prototypes until all of a sudden things click and they start to flow. So the non-movement non-movement is still movement. The way that we want things to progress in a linear manner. And like a river, it's like you're going down the river and sometimes you get caught up behind a dam or you get swirled in eddies and you're doing this and you feel like you're not going anywhere because you're not moving forward. There's lots of different directions to move. It doesn't have to be forward. There's lots of beneficial things that can happen in that swirl. And sometimes that can be the most productive. Sometimes when you are moving forward, you are just hurtling in a direction just to be going in any direction. And it can be valuable to sit and stew on things for a little while. Not too long. I still should really make a prototype for this, especially with all these new thoughts that we've had here. This is good. I feel good. That quote should be on a fortune cookie. Yes. How do I pitch to fortune cookie people? I want to put that. Can I get paid for that? I put my thing on a fortune cookie. It's really good. You should write it on your cookie. People want to feel inspired by my cookie words. Gameologist says, speaking of stuck on things, I've been trying to figure out the central mystery of the Kids on Bikes adventure I'm trying to design for the RPG Writer Workshop. Ooh, I do not know about this thing. This sounds cool. Yes, let's dig into this. Kind of got stuck once I figured out that the Luther Dogman would be there. I don't know what that is. I figure the rest will come in time. Besides, it's still 8 more years before he'll be back. He only comes on the 7th year of each decade. It's a thing. What? Sorry, I'm looking at that and then Senior Bob's comment at the same time. I'm like, what? Luther Dogman? Oh, the Michigan Dogman. Oh, okay, cool. I see. Okay. Kids on Bikes, Small Town Mysteries, Luther Dogman. It's a thing. I'm gonna read about that. Hmm. Yeah, so you're moving forward, Luther Dogman. 8 more years before he'll be back. Cool. Yeah. Nothing is wrong with being stuck. It's something that I'm trying to teach myself and tell myself because I've felt very stressed out lately about being stuck on projects and not having things move forward as quickly as I would like them to. So I think it's on the back burner, stewing around in the back of your mind. Eventually, everything will come together. Luther Dogman, you get some weird songs. Michigan's got some weird songs. I don't know what's up with y'all, but I mean, it's great also, and I love it. You see him going up the river. If you're stuck, eventually a bear will catch you and feed you to your cubs. That's very inspirational, Senior Bob. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Michigan's got some weird stuff going on. It's great. I want to go to Michigan, right? What is a Grand Con? I got to keep that on my list. I got to figure out a way to make that happen. Okay, friends, it is time. This has been really great. Thank you for talking about this game. I know we've talked about it a few times, and I'm really happy that you are comfortable continuing to work through it with me, because I don't want y'all to get bored by us talking about the same thing too frequently. If you ever feel that I'm digging too much into a certain thing, this show is as much about you learning and enjoying yourselves as it is about me working on my games. So, always happy to listen to feedback about what you're thinking, but I am happy. I was feeling like I was starting to get unstuck with this, but I think a lot of the stuff that we came up with today has been very useful. Anyways, as I said, I like to end the stream with a new brainstorm, come up with some fresh ideas, play around. As you can see, I've almost gone through another notebook. This is the second one of the stream, so that's pretty cool. Got all our fun stream mind maps and brainstorms in here. Yeah, so let's come up with some game ideas. I feel like we have some stuff here with mushrooms and space and stuff. Maybe we talk about some more space mushroom games, or what do you think? What do you think we should brainstorm? I can't. We now use sugar beets as a unit of measure of volume. Everyone else can stick to cubic meters or whatever. We got sugar beets. I mean, if a governor signs the bill, we've got sugar beets as a unit of measure. Is this real life? Sometimes I wonder whether you come from some alternate dimension, spreading your chocodiles and your delicious sodas and your weird facts, which is great. Alternate dimension. Grand Con is a really elaborate hoax to entice you to go to Michigan. Incredibly elaborate. They're going to have art prize after Grand Con again next year. That'll be fun. Alright, I'm going to do it. If no one comes up with anything else, I'm going to come up with mushrooms. We're going to brainstorm for maybe about 10 minutes, and then we'll call it a day. I know we got started a little late today, but I had some food. I ate like a quick snack in the time that I had, but still kind of hungry. So I'm going to eat my noodles that are waiting to cool down out there. But first, brainstorm. The sugar beet thing sound like something a Roman emperor would do. Let's do sugar beets. Beet, sugar beet. I don't know what that's from. It's in my head. It's probably Sesame Street or something. Sugar beet. I don't even know what a sugar beet is. Is that different than a regular beet? Sugar beet versus beet. A sugar beet is a plant whose root contains a high concentration of sucrose, which is grown commercially for sugar production. I don't think you eat those, right? For everyone else out there, I feel like it would be delicious. Huh. But there must be a reason that they're not eaten. Yeah, for anyone else who wants to know the difference between a beet and a sugar beet, I'm going to post this. Alright. I don't even have, I'm not even writing anything down yet, but I already have an idea for this sugar beets game. From Senior Bob's quote. Game idea the first. Units of beet measurement. And I have a stream name idea. Beet, sugar, beet. You get it. It's from the 80s or 90s. You are a ruler. You're trying to, it doesn't necessarily have to be just units of measurement, but you're trying to pass bizarre laws that you just like. I'm gonna write a note that will make no sense out of context. Michigan laws and Roman rulers. You have preferences for certain, each player has preferences for certain laws. Either you're competing to pass laws in one government. Oh man, this is some ripe political commentary. This game is ripe for political commentary, for better or worse. You're the Congress or whatever. Or you each have your own country where you're trying to pass laws. Oh man. There's a ton of space for humor. Reference the weirdest laws book. I feel like there's a bunch of books that I've either you see them in the library or the bookstore. It's like the 1001 weirdest laws still in existence today. I feel like you'd be hard pressed to come up with something weirder than some of the things that are actual laws. Like this sugar beet law, which might not be that weird at all. I mean, I'm kind of making a judgment there, and I apologize for denigrating the sugar beet law, which I'm sure has a very good reason for it. Ducks may only travel in pods. Ducks have the right of way. We're instigating a duck transit protection brigade whose only job is to follow ducks around and make sure they're okay. We need funding for it. So it could be making the laws. It can also be getting funding for the laws. So funding could be an aspect of it. Oh, okay, we're getting more into this sugar beet thing. I'm so happy. I'm so there. I'm so here for this. They tacked the sugar beet thing into a bill about hunting deer over bait. Okay. The state senate included text that said bait items can't be larger than a sugar beet. Okay, I'm getting the thing here. Huh. So I guess I guess conservation officers will be going around with golden sugar beets on their belts so they can measure the size of bait items. Dingling senators. That is fabulous. You see, there's great stories like this make for great narratives like this make for amazing game ideas. Right. I mean, as opposed to, I don't know, it can't be larger than a toaster, or yeah. To be fair, I could see that. Like, I can visualize a sugar beet. I don't know. Alright, see, especially since they're commercially grown, they're probably larger. Like, a regular beet goes anywhere. I'm like, my hand, you can't see my hands here, is anywhere from, like, this sort of a scale. Yes, the volumes of things are hard, actually. It's like about the size of a grapefruit, maybe a little smaller. The sugar beets probably larger than that because they're commercial and they're like plumped up, right? So maybe like a little bigger than a regular beet. Yeah, but how big is what is that? Like 100 cubic centimeters? Like I wouldn't even know how to describe that in terms of actual volume. It is funny, but I can kind of see it. It kind of makes sense. Game Elders. I've eaten a sugar beet. Not super great. The area around the Pioneer Sugar Refinery is a unique aromatic experience. Probably not the sort of thing to fuel torn. Oh my gosh. Ooh, this is great because I can actually put it. This is a great quote. Unique aromatic experience. Like Jackson said, give me a beet. The tax game. Pass weird taxes like the duck tax or the bear tax. Ooh, yep. I love it. Everyone loves games about taxes. Each round, draw a card for the table that describes a small and simply solved problem. Ooh, I like where this is going. And then every player has to come up with the most ridiculous and convoluted solution that will spin off into creating more problems that are vastly more significant than the original problem. The winner is the player whose proposed bill both solves the original problem and causes the most insane unintended consequences. Oh my gosh. I think your beet law is a perfect example of that, right? So you can think of very interesting potential consequences. Oh, excuse me for that. Now there's coming back to beets. I'm gonna make a bolded list. Actually, there's now a line item in the budget that has to be approved for. Were these the rangers? Oh, conservation officers. Conservation officer beet supply. And they don't last forever, right? They eventually go bad, so you have to keep purchasing these beets for the officers. In order to reduce the beet cost, oh my gosh, I love it. I love where my brain is going with this. Beet surrogate needs to be molded and cast from plastic. An exploratory committee is formed to argue over the size and shape of the mold. Someone has to purchase a bunch of beets to compare which one they'll use for them to form the mold. So the beets are on the belts, so you need a... Designers are hired to create a special beet transportation pouch for officers to wear. Wearing beets, I'm just going off the rails here. Wearing beets becomes en vogue. And so, they need to start growing more beets to keep up with the demand. Well, all sorts of great ideas here. Aren't sugar beets grown in space? Call back. Oh. Right? Right? Sugar beets are big. Figure about grapefruitish cantaloupe size. Yeah, that's why I figured they would be larger. Regular beets are about lemon size. Yeah. Every Walker, Texas conservation officer. Yeah. Every sugar beet is a different size, and enforcement doesn't work without standards, so someone needs to figure out exactly which beet is the platonic ideal beet. And what happens when an officer finds a beet that's bigger than the definition of a beet? Can you get a ticket for using a beet that's bigger than the beet standard beet, right? So many questions. Oh, wow. Oh, man. This is fun. This is great. Y'all are great. Y'all are the best. Cool. So it's been about 10 minutes for this brainstorm. I feel like it always goes so fast. I feel we're gonna have so much time, and then it just whisks away. All it is dust in the wind. We wore onions on our belts, as was the style at the time, Grandpa Simpson, right? Yeah, exactly. Except onions, beets, all sorts of fun stuff. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was fun. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was educational. I'm here streaming board game design every Tuesday. Mostly started to begin the sessions talking about the games that I'm working on. Also, always like to have a open brainstorming session at the end so we can come up with some new ideas. I'd love to hear what people are designing and working on. You can talk about in chat here or hit me up on Twitter. I'm also at Emma Larkins. If you like what you see here, you can follow or sub to the channel. It's good to know that if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually subscribe to one Twitch channel for free. So that's super fun because you can help support streamers with not paying anything extra because it just comes with Amazon Prime, which is awesome. Yeah, hope this has been useful to you. If you ever have any inspirations based on anything that we work on here on the stream, feel free to run with it. I'm always excited to see ideas beget ideas beget ideas, and I love having funny things in the chat and coming up with weird, goofy ideas because I think the world needs more weird, goofy game designs. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for me for today. Also, tune in on Thursdays for our game playing stream where we do some casual gaming, usually Magic the Gathering, but also do a little bit of been doing teamfight tactics. We did some Runeterra last week, which was fun as well. I like to do board game adjacent video games and talk a little bit about design philosophies. As always, I hope that you have a fun rest of your week, and I will catch you again soon. See you around the table.